Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. So I was just on Amazon a day or two ago and I happened to stumble upon this, which is a very interesting Jurassic World game called Shakey Volcano. Well, on top of it just kind of attracting my attention, it also in general has some really cool minifigures that are included. As you can see, it states up there by the window area, 8 figures included. 8 figures inside. So I was actually quite intrigued by this, so I instantly went ahead and placed an order for it, and I figured it would be fun for us to kind of unbox it here on the channel, take a look at it, and, see if those minis that are in there are any good, because, kind of what they're showing us on the front looks half decent, and there's a Carnotaurus, of course, included, so that is definitely going to be a selling point for me. But you can see, as far as the packaging and everything goes, you've got a nice shot here on the front of the box. Again, it does state that it erupts, and then again the window area where you can kind of see the figures but not too well back there. And then again, some more images down here. If you look over here on the side, you've got, again, another shot of the volcano. A shot up here with a Parasaurolophus, Velociraptor Blue, and the Quetzalcoatlus. So this obviously must have been released sometime around Dominion or after. Maybe it's new. I don't know, actually, because I had never even seen this before. Trying to look for a date. For some reason, I'm not seeing one straight out of the gate here. But again, over here on the side, another shot, but this time with the Carnotaurus, which is really exciting. And then here on the back, basically, some images showing off everything that's included, as well as a shot of the Atrociraptor right here. So let's pop this box open and check it out. So once you open the packaging up and you bring everything in, as you can see, we are left with a pile of stuff here, including the minis, which I'm not entirely sure how I feel about them quite yet, but I guess we'll get to that in a minute. But what I do need to do, of course, is basically construct everything that we have here, assemble it all, and then we'll come back and check it out then. So we have everything assembled about as much as I'm going to get it for right now, and as you can see, you have a volcano. Now, I'm not actually going to play the game. That's not really my intentions with the video. It's basically just to show it off and unbox it and just kind of get a feel for it. But I am, of course, here in the closer look section of my videos, so I just wanted to basically take a closer look and examine the stuff that's included, just kind of show it off to you. So here's the volcano, and basically what the game is you would spin this little spinner down here, which you can see right here, obviously shows off the different dinosaurs that are included, and you basically have to put them in different spots, and then the volcano starts to kind of shake because it's a little bit unstable, as you can see. So the more dinosaurs that get piled on here, the shakier it's going to get until it eventually, I guess, explodes. And it doesn't actually technically explode or anything, but knocks all the dinosaurs off and stuff like that. But you can see the volcano itself is sculpted pretty nicely. Obviously, the detail isn't super high quality, but it does look fun enough. And then we've got like the lava coming down and everything, which is definitely a nice touch. I really quite like that. And overall is honestly a pretty cool display piece as far as the way that these minis go. I think that this entire thing would be a really nice way to display the minis themselves. You've also got this little area up here where you are supposed to attach the Pteranodon, and your goal is to make sure the Pteranodon doesn't kind of fly around, which, as you can see, whoop, it just exploded right there. I guess that was the point where it would blow up, but as you can see, the rod spins around, making the Pteranodon fly. And basically what you do is you push this down, and then I guess after a certain period of time it pops up, and that's how the volcano, in quotation marks, explodes. But it's a pretty neat volcano. And then of course I want to see the minis themselves, and as you can see, here is the Triceratops. It's not the greatest Triceratops, but it very much so looks like some art that I remember seeing associated with the Jurassic films as far as the Triceratops goes. The head, though, is massive on this mini. Like, you can see that the rest of the body looks pretty decent. The skin texture is okay. It's not absolutely phenomenal, but it's also not bad by any means. I think it looks okay. It's just that the head is just like way too large. But as far as capturing the overall likeness of a Jurassic World style Triceratops, I feel like they did a good job. If you look past the wonky proportions, I feel like it definitely resembles a Jurassic World Triceratops fairly decently. There's not really much in the way of color. As you can see, we basically just have a gray, and then you do have eyes painted, as you have a black for the eyes, but that's really it. There's no other coloration on the figure at all, but it does look pretty decent. Again, Honestly, I would say even a little better than I was expecting. I just wish the head wasn't so big. Then we've also got the Pteranodon, which you can see doesn't have much in the way of a crest, but it does actually have some coloration to it, which is something that a lot of the other figures don't have. And you can see we've got like a brown, like a chocolate brown for the wings, and then a kind of a bluish tone for the body. You do also have more of that brown moving over the top of the head, and you do have the eyes painted with a black, and actually the inside of the mouth also features that coloration, again, that kind of brownish tone. And as you can see, it also runs along the undersides of the wings. It very much so reminds me of the Mattel Mini Pteranodon. It's obviously not the same sculpt, but it looks kind of similar because it's in the same sort of flying pose and stuff. But you can see the detail, just like with the Triceratops, is alright on it. Like, you can really see some decent looking skin texture on the undersides here of the wings. And again, same deal when you move over here. We could obviously see there's a little area here where you basically plug the Pteranodon in to the volcano itself. So I'm going to try to prop them all up here on a minute just to kind of get an idea as far as what the display would look like. But the detailing in some areas is a little muted. Like, it doesn't look incredible up here in the beak or anything, but again, it continues to have at least a fairly decent look to it, except for the fact that we don't have much of a crest on the Pteranodon, but again, not too bad. We've also got the Stegosaurus, and I feel like the Stegosaurus has some of the nicest detailing out of any of the figures that we've seen up until this point. Again, the proportions seem a little bit off to me, but the detailing is definitely there on this one. It does still, even if the proportions are off, like a lot of these figures seem to have kind of wonky proportions, even if they are off, it still has like that, you know, Jurassic World Stegosaurus look to it. I feel like as far as the actual screen accuracy goes, they did do a pretty good job on this one. You can see basically just the green for the entire thing and then black for the eyes, nowhere near the amount of color we had on the Pteranodon. But again, the sculpt on this one is actually fairly impressive, and if you really wanted to go crazy, you could buy this and then repaint them, and I feel like they could look pretty good. You can see actually like a seam there where the front leg was connected, which is interesting. But overall, again, you've got kind of like a really cool, almost like a running pose for the Stegosaurus, like it's kind of fleeing from the volcano, almost recreating the scene in Jurassic World where they do that, or I should say actually Fallen Kingdom. But again, it looks pretty nice. I would say so far the Stegosaurus is my favorite. We've also got a Stygimoloch, and when you want to talk about wonky proportions, boy, this one's got it. As you can see, we've got a really short tail, a massive head. It almost looks like an accordion version of a Stygimoloch, like they just basically scrunched the entire figure up, or maybe it just ran too fast and then slammed its head into a wall and then just kind of crushed the entire body. The detailing on this one isn't that bad, but it's not very good. Like, it's nowhere near as nice as we saw on the Stegosaurus. You can see, again, we do have the eyes painted, we have a brown for the body color, and then you do have a weird dry brushing over the top. Like, you can see some light tones kind of dry brushed over the dome and then the back. The dome I can understand, even though it's horribly sloppy, but the back is kind of like, I don't know, I'm not really sure why they applied it there. But the Stygimoloch as a whole is definitely not the greatest figure. It does kind of, again, have the look of like it running, like charging down the hill away from the volcano, because it looks like it's stepping off of a rock as it's moving through, which is kind of cool, but I would say so far that's the weakest figure of the bunch. We've also got Velociraptor Blue, and again, the proportions are just all over the place on this figure. Kind of the same thing almost going on with this one that we had seen on the Stygimoloch, where it looks like it's kind of stepping off of a rock and everything. But again, the tail, not really the length that we should see. The head looks pretty big and everything. But I am intrigued to see that there's actually a little extra when it comes to the colors on this one, as we have the gray for the body. We do have the blue stripe, but you can also see that we actually have the eyes painted with what looks like a yellow or some sort of a lighter tone there, and then a black pupil, and that's the first one out of all of these that had actual variation of color to the eyes. No coloration for the inside of the mouth or anything, but you can see the teeth and everything sculpted out. And again, the detail looks okay, a little muted, I would say. Nowhere near as nice as we again saw on the Stegosaurus. So far the Stegosaurus is the reigning supreme leader here of these figures when it comes to fine detail, but you can see they actually captured the blue stripes stopping here before the eye and actually going around the eye over here. So they did do a good job as far as that goes. It's amazing how every company, no matter whether they create dinosaur figures or not, seem to be capturing that aspect of Velociraptor Blue, but back in the day when Hasbro had the Jurassic World license, they just didn't even try. It's just really, really funny to me. But again, the blue figure, it's okay, but loaded again with ridiculous looking proportions. We've also got the Carnotaurus, and the Carnotaurus does have a little extra variation of color to it, which is nice. It also has some okay looking detail, but also is a bit muted, but as you let the light kind of hit it, you can see it is shining the detail out. Like, it looks like it's there, it's just kind of hard to pick up on. And again, I think they did a pretty decent job as far as the sculpt and kind of recreating a Carnotaurus that looks like it does in Jurassic World. I think for the most part it looks alright. You can see we do have like a darker tone that kind of runs over the top of the head and patterns down through the body, actually all the way out onto the tail, which is nice. And again, we have the Carnotaurus kind of stepping over a rock, just like we've seen with a lot of these figures. And I think the pose is really quite nice, definitely giving the Carnotaurus a bit of a menacing look. You've got a pretty cool curve to the tail. The proportions, just like the others, is definitely off a bit. Like, I feel like the head is absolutely too big. The tail length is definitely too short, but looks a little better than some of the others. The detail, again, though, isn't quite as nice as the Stegosaurus, but I would say this one's sitting currently at second place when it comes to the amount of detail I'm seeing. We can see this one as well, just like Velociraptor Blue, does actually have variation of color to the eyes, and shockingly are painted pretty nicely for the size of the head. Like, the eye paint is actually pretty precise, which is pretty cool. And we do have the mouth sculpted in an open position. We can see the teeth in there, the tongue and everything, so again, pretty cool looking Carnotaurus. Definitely not the best one out there, but still cool. Now we've got a contender for the Stegosaurus when it comes to the detailing department, because we've got the Brachiosaurus, and honestly, I think the Brachiosaurus actually looks pretty good, especially in the head sculpt. They did do a pretty decent job there. You have a gray for the primary body color, and then a black for the eyes. And one thing about these figures is the paintwork of the eyes on all of them that I've noticed so far is pretty precise, pretty spot on, which is definitely a huge plus for these figures. But you can see the detail on the Brachiosaurus does actually look quite nice. As you move through the body, you can see there's a whole lot of skin texture, nice muscle definition, all sorts of skin folds and wrinkles. As you move up through the course of the neck, back up into the head, it definitely, again, has that screen-accurate look, I would say, when it comes to the overall visual, but still having ridiculous-looking proportions like all of these figures have had so far. But I would say that the Brachiosaurus is absolutely one of my favorites from this set. It just looks super nice, even with the ridiculous proportions on it, like all of these figures seem to have had, honestly. I don't think any of them have been proportioned correctly. The closest would be the Pteranodon, but still kind of missing the crest. But it does still have some very impressive fine detail, and it's got a really nice looking head sculpt. And the final one is the T-Rex, and honestly the T-Rex might be one of the weakest next to the Stygimoloch. There's just something that's kind of goofy looking about it. On top of that, the detail is really muted. Like, you can see that there's really no detail in the face at all. It's almost completely smoothed out, which is unfortunate. We do have paintwork for the eye. Again, a little variation of color with a yellow and a black. And then the tongue is actually painted as well. The teeth aren't, but the tongue is. But as you move into the body, the detail looks okay, but pretty generic. It almost looks like they took a piece of clay and just kind of sculpted this one out, and the other ones kind of looked a little more high quality when it comes to the actual fine detail and sculpt. They look more like they were like 3D sculpted, whereas this one looks almost like it was hand sculpted, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I love hand sculpted figures, but it's just weird and kind of inconsistent when the others have a very different look to it, and then this one just has that almost hand sculpted with kind of clay sort of a look. Also, like the others, it's kind of stepping over a rock. This company really seems to enjoy the dinosaurs running over rocks and stuff like that idea. But it's not the worst T-Rex when it comes to a Jurassic World style version I've seen. It kind of has that sort of look to it where it looks like it does in the film, but it's definitely one of the weaker figures of the bunch. Outside of the head area, there's no coloration at all. You don't see any color down into the feet. The feet actually look pretty good, though. I will say they definitely have that nice Jurassic World T-Rex foot sculpt to them, but overall, definitely not an incredible T-Rex, but it's okay, I guess. There is also these little kind of rings that you basically put on the volcano, and each of them do have the Jurassic World logo, which is currently upside down, but you can see the Jurassic World logo on them, and then basically you put them in here, and then as you can see, you would then take your dinosaur and put it inside that, if I can get it in there. See, again, you can obviously see how shaky the game is, which is kind of part of the fun as far as playing it, I would imagine. Definitely something I may have to play with my kids at some point in the near future, but I'm going to try to get all of these dinosaurs up here on the volcano in one way or another, just so we can kind of take a look at the overall display. So there is the final display. I was able to balance this out with one of them little circles that you put the dinosaurs in. Otherwise, this thing is shaking all over the place, and I can see exactly why this game would be so challenging, especially because I basically posed every dinosaur on this side. I displayed them all on one side so we can see them, which is, in my opinion, of course, the ideal way to display these if you wanted to keep them on display. But I think they look really neat, and of course the Pteranodon flying up there, which you can only see a brief amount of because he starts to kind of disappear into the top of the screen, and he might be blending in there with that sign back there, but also looks really cool. Again, I love the fact that it's kind of flying above all of the dinosaurs. So again, it's, as far as like a game goes, it is really neat. It definitely seems like it would be fun to play, and the fact that you have minis included makes the game twice as fun, and definitely twice as interesting, I would think, for kids, because on top of having a game they can play, they then also have small dinosaur toys they can also play with. So it's like a win-win no matter what direction you go as far as that goes. And another thing that's fun is it's a game that doesn't have batteries. Like, you don't need batteries for it, so that I think is pretty convenient. Of course, you know, it would be pretty neat to have noises and everything with it, and maybe light up effects with the lava and stuff, but I think the game, honestly, as far as the way it is, seems really cool. The display is also really neat, which we can see. The fact that the dinosaurs actually connect to those little rings that go underneath them makes them even more fun to display, because then each one of them actually has a Jurassic World logo kind of showing off the dinosaurs. So even though the dinos aren't perfect, they're a little goofy as far as the actual proportions and everything go, it's still a pretty fun game. So if you are interested in grabbing this, I will include a link in the description to where I purchased mine from Amazon.com. So make sure you check that link, go grab this if you want it, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.